You are now listening to the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Welcome to They Live by Film, a platform dedicated to bringing you film discussion and interviews from around the world. I am Adam Lundy, and I'm joined as always by a couple of dudes called Chris Haskell and Zach Bryant.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hola.
Just a couple of dudes. How you doing?
Just a couple of dudes. Just for the listeners, we were recording this on Super Bowl Sunday, so just want to get it out there. Fuck the Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.
No, fuck the
Unfortunately.
Chiefs. Just get it out there now. If obviously the result will already be known when you're listening to this, so I'm just putting it out there into the universe. Fuck the Chiefs.
Well,
Which works for both. Like if they win, fuck the Chiefs. If they lose, fuck the Chiefs. It works for either way, so I'm not really jinxing it.
and if this comes out on Valentine's Day, so if you have any money on the game, you might get fucked by the Chiefs. So it kind of works in every way.
Well, it will be coming out on Valentine's Day, so that's an excellent point.
You know, the frustrating thing for me is my significant hate for the Eagles. I was like, please let it be anyone else, so I do not have to root for a three-peat.
Yeah, it was always going to be awkward if you were in that division. So
I was like, fuck. I was like, it was almost a curse for Washington to win against Detroit. I'm happy they did, but it's like, fuck. I don't like it. It honestly bothers me more to see the Eagles go in. It bothers me so much more.
this was like when because obviously it sucks. Most Super Bowls suck for me because the Chiefs were there. But then what was worse was the year that the Chiefs were playing the 49ers. And I'm like, I hate both of these guys. This is like
I didn't know you had a hate for the 49ers.
Well, it's just because of the Bay Area thing. So
okay. Oh, makes sense. Yeah.
Oakland and San Francisco. So I don't like the 49ers because of that. So it's just like this is like the worst time. Like not that I like the Eagles or anything because their fan base are fucking assholes, but sorry for any Philadelphia guys out there listening.
You threw batteries at Santa Claus.
Like they're not good. They're the majority of their fans. Well, that's probably wrong. The loud minority of their fans are fucking assholes. So I don't like to have to root for the Eagles, but here we are. At least Saquon Barkley is fun. So that's the thing.
Like that's the thing. I like Saquon, and he's played for two division rivals, but I like him, and that's so sad because he's fun to watch when he's not running 60 yards against my team every year.
The Eagles, though, I mean, I understand why you hate them, Zach. And other than the Eagles, looks like the Commanders are going to be like, pretty much winning the division now for a while. But
with the Eagles, you never know. I mean, I'm not scared of Marty Schottenheimer's son leading the Cowboys, but who the fuck knows?
Exactly.
Watch it be that.
But I remember and I know this is sorry for y'all for those who hate football, but just really quick, I used to play with the Eagles whenever I did back when I was playing Madden, probably like 2002, 2003, 2004. Because they had these amazing receivers and like amazing quarterback. They were so fun to play with.
Yeah, that was the year they went like 4 NFC championships in a row.
When they had Michael Vick.
No, that was Donovan. That was McNabb and T.O. They had a great team. Honestly, they had a great team. But honestly, it's shows that McNabb does not deserve the Hall of Fame if they ever consider it. He had a baller team for 4 straight years in a weak division. Why did you only go to the Super Bowl once and lose against Brady? The Brady one doesn't bother me as much, but like you got in an easy division every year and still couldn't go very often.
You could say that's similar enough to Josh Allen the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it sucks because I like Josh Allen, I really do. But yeah, that him not being able to beat the Chiefs is kind of a blemish if he can't overcome it.
Well, the Bills are cursed anyways. Who's the other guy? Is it Jim Kelly? Who's the other guy from the?
Frank Reich, helped them win that big comeback against the Oilers. But I mean, Jim Kelly brought them to 4 straight.
Yeah, Jim Kelly was 4 straight, right? But then they lost 4 straight.
Yeah, that I was almost sort of rooting for the Bills and the Eagles because I was like, wait, the Bills have not lost to the Eagles yet. It's the only one. And then they've lost against the rest of the division.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
But anyway,
Uh,
so everyone who's already skipped ahead, welcome back. We've stopped talking about football.
yeah. We'll do any other business. I can go through mine because I've had a very busy 6 weeks, so I haven't watched a ton. I only have a couple of things to kind of shout out before we get into our feature presentations. Since we last recorded, unfortunately, we lost David Lynch.
RIP, man.
Yeah, that hit me hard. He was one of the first filmmakers I fell in love with when I first started getting into film. So that really hit me hard. So I rewatched two of his films that kind of don't get talked about as much. One I hadn't seen in over 10 years and I didn't like it when I first saw it. And then one I hadn't seen in about 6 or 7 years and I used to love it. So I was interested to see how they held up. So one was Wild at Heart, which I didn't like when I first saw it as probably like 19, 18 maybe. I was young when I saw it and I didn't like it. And I watched it this time and I thought it was really good. I really,
I
really
love
liked it
Wild
this
at Heart.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good film. And what's kind of surprised me this time around is I didn't really remember it. It's a great love story.
Hmm.
At the end of it, it's just a really good romance. Nick, like Lula and Sailor are not perfect people, but they fucking love each other. You can't
And
really challenge that.
and
Um,
I'll bring this up, Adam, just because I think you would like it. So you remember that like Hispanic girl they like meet on the side of the road? I think her name is Perdita Durango.
yeah,
The
yeah,
author who wrote that he wrote these novels.
Barry Gifford, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean he has the movie Perdita Durango, which is the cut you should watch. It's a little bit longer, but it's a very
Mhm.
similar thing, and I actually think you'd like it. It's a little bit darker, but it has like young Javier Bardem and oh, what's her name? Rosie Perez. I
Okay.
had to think of like Road to El Dorado because that's what I remember her from the most. But
Yeah, I'll try and get on that. The other Lynch film I watched was Lost Highway, which just coincided with the fact that we were covering it in the film club anyway. But yeah, I watched Lost Highway, which was a David Lynch film that I loved a lot as a teenager, and I haven't seen it again in a long time. And I still really, really like this film. It's not perfect or anything, but it's an incredible film. The performances are excellent. What I love about it, I guess, would be I find a lot of similarities in terms of themes and imagery with Vertigo. So for me, it's almost like the Vertigo of the 90s. Um, so yeah, I'm a big Lost Highway guy. So I really enjoyed revisiting that for the first time in a long time. And the only thing else really of note, I just watched a couple of 2024 films I didn't see on release. I rewatched Nosferatu. I watched it again because it came onto digital and Neve wanted to see it because she didn't get to see it in theater. So we watched that together. But I mainly spent it watching her reaction to various scenes. Um, we'll cover more on Nosferatu at the end of the episode. And then I watched Challengers, which I didn't love, but I thought it was pretty neat. It's cool. It's a cool format. I don't know if you guys have seen Challengers,
no,
No,
I've
the
not.
curious to though.
Zendaya tennis film. It's formatted interestingly. It's a tennis match between these two old rivals, and at various points during the tennis match, it goes back in time to kind of show how their relationship and friendship and developed between the two rivals and Zendaya and stuff. So it kind of follows them from high school all the way until they become professionals over the course of one tennis match, and it just kind of jumps back and forth. So it's an interesting format. I didn't love the film or anything, but I thought it was pretty good. I thought the score was great, so I was surprised when that one got snubbed at the Oscars.
Trent Reznor did that one,
Because
right?
yeah, Trent Reznor and Atticus
Yeah.
Ross, so guys who are very used to getting nominated for Oscars, but they were snubbed, which I thought was which I was surprised about. But then again, I haven't seen a ton of the other films that were nominated, so I can't say whether that was a fair reflection. And then just a couple of nights ago, I watched Baby Girl, which is the Nicole Kidman vehicle, where she's an older woman who gets into a kind of affair with a much younger man. It's an interesting film in that it's almost like a kind of spiritual companion to Eyes Wide Shut, in that it's a sexual odyssey film that takes place at Christmas time in New York, and
Huh.
it stars Nicole Kidman. Um, there's even like a scene where she's in the back of a taxi leaving New York, going
Like Tom
towards,
Cruise was.
an encounter, very, very similar to the Tom Cruise scene when he's in the
Interesting.
back of the taxi. It's not. I wouldn't. It's definitely nowhere near as good as Eyes Wide Shut. It has some interesting ideas, especially around the kind of ideas of like sexual kinks and stuff like that. It has some good ideas, but it's not. I don't think it's incredibly like well directed or anything. It's a solid film, but it wasn't like amazing. I probably would never kind of rewatch it again, but it was interesting. So yeah, that's pretty much been my start to the year. Obviously, I've had some Radiant stuff in there, but in terms of non-Radiance things, that's been my start to the year.
You getting hornier now, Adam? You're changing.
Yeah,
This is
between
like me. This
Challengers
is
and
like me
Baby Girl,
watching.
I'm totally just going in for the horny films.
This is like me watching blue is the warmest color and talking about the cinematography.
Instead of
Um,
talking about how that movie sucks.
yeah, I still haven't seen the whole thing. I've only seen about 8 minutes of it, but um, one day I'll watch it maybe. Um, that's cool. Yeah, I do want to see some of the ones you've mentioned though. Even Nosferatu has this like beautiful special edition coming out on physical media. So I don't know. I'm
Better
curious.
have HDR so we can see Skarsgård dong, Scars
Yeah,
dong, as I like to call it.
I was yeah, I was very disappointed that because I was told going in, oh, he hangs dong, and I was like, that was it. We only saw the shadow of a dong, but
Was
Shadow's a
whatever.
big thing. It means more.
Yeah, I
yeah.
suppose keeps you guessing.
I can go next, even though I'm going to try to keep it short. So I'm gonna try to keep up with this just so you guys can see where I'm at. So far, I'm at 80 movies for the year.
Oh my gosh, crazy.
So I've actually been doing a thing. I'll shout out Aaron West real quick. He made a list of best 21st century horror films that I thought was really interesting. It inspired me to try to get through some stuff that's been a blind spot for me for a while so I can make my own.
Okay.
So I've been catching up on some stuff. I'll start with Fanny and Alexander since Adam, you are a big Bergman guy and you haven't seen it. That movie's so fucking boring. Just throwing that out there. I was so bored.
I'm not
Look,
shocked.
yeah. But that's me. I need like some like psychological torture in my Bergman to enjoy it. So I did watch A Tale of Two Sisters, which I had never seen, which was pretty good. I enjoyed that one.
I'm surprised you haven't
Uh
seen that one.
yeah, well, I'll kind of go through this whole thing. So I remember the 2000s horror scene pretty well, and one thing that always pissed me off was how obnoxious the Japanese weeb horror guys were,
Hmm.
where no other country has made a good movie in the 2000s but the Japanese or the Koreans or any of
I was
the
gonna
Asian
say, isn't that
countries.
film Korean for sure?
Yeah, but any of them, mostly it was Japanese, but it was
Yeah,
all of them. Yeah.
J horror was massive. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I really avoided a lot of different J horror for a long time, and mostly because I stick to the fact that The Ring is much better than Ringu.
I
I will
agree.
I will fight someone in the street who disagrees with me because you're wrong.
No, I agree with
Ringu
you.
is fine. Um, I watched Dark Water, which is another one. I actually knew the ending of that thanks to a true crime case, which I won't name because then it might spoil the movie for someone else. But I actually, because it was talked about a lot during a true crime case, so I actually knew that the ending of that one. But that one was fantastic. I finally watched Let the Right One In, which was good. I think it was a little low energy for me. Like I liked it a lot, but it's like the first 30 minutes are just kind of like meandering around, and then shit starts to happen in the last hour, and I'm like, okay, I'm into people catching on fire and getting their throat ripped out. Why didn't we do that the first 30 minutes? And last night I went to the theater to see Hard Eyes, which I actually hope more people go see. It's a new rom-com slasher movie. And honestly, it does both elements really well. I was very surprised. I just thought it was going to be more of a slasher movie than anything, but it kind of cuts its time 50-50 between romantic comedy and slasher. And I think they did a pretty good job on both.
At the
Uh,
one with Mason Gooding.
yeah, yeah,
Scream 5, baby. It's just
yeah.
pumps out stars, man.
Yeah, and honestly, Sony keep making these like holiday slashers. This and Thanksgiving were good. Like I'm down if they keep making them. Like just keep giving good directors the ability to make slasher films. It's not that hard.
True.
So, and the guy who directed this is Josh Rubin. I've seen a few of his movies, but I actually mostly know him from College Humor. I don't know if either of you guys were College Humor guys.
I know
Yeah.
it exists, but I didn't really watch it.
What?
Yeah, he was one of the big guys in that, and mostly Dropout, which was like their spinoff of that. But he's the director.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So
I
he's
mean,
done good. He's
the thing about talented directors nowadays is that most of them probably grew up watching slashers, so it's kind of like you're getting the benefit of them really knowing the genre too, right?
yeah, and it's at least they know it's like a profitable thing. Like before, it was
Yeah,
like,
that's
yeah,
true.
it's profitable. We're only going to give you like $800,000 to make this, and you're
Right.
going to have to film it in Canada. Now it's like, hey, here's like $5 million to go make something, and here's an actual cast that's actually seen a film before,
Right,
not
right,
this
right.
guy that's
Zach,
going to learn how to be a key grip operator.
I can't believe you left out the most important part of Heart Eyes, and
What's
that
that?
Jordana Brewster is in it.
Ah, yes, yes.
Mia Toretto.
Yes, yes. I can't believe I forgot that. She's great in it too. She's
That is.
honestly, she has much more character in this than she ever did in Fast and Furious.
Um,
So, Chris, finish
before
this up.
before we move on, you're skipping over what I thought you were going to say about Aaron West, which I want to call out because you look very dapper and you did a great job talking about Osgood Perkins with him, and you can go find that. Um, what's it called? Is it just called the
Cine
A24?
Journeys.
Cine
Cine
Journeys.
Journeys. Yeah, I think if you type in like A24 New Wave, it's
I'll put
part of
link in the
it's like a
description.
yeah, it's a collaboration with his book he's writing that should be out later this year, which the
Yeah,
Kickstarter's still going. So I'll give a free shout out to that. Go help him write. Looks like it's going to be good.
yeah. Good job. Aaron West is becoming very quickly becoming an expert in everything beyond Criterion now that he's conquered Criterion.
Friend of the channel, Aaron West. We can actually say that now. Look at
That's right.
us.
Yeah, the first time we're saying it where it's real. Um, okay, so there is a studio in the UK named Amicus that doesn't get enough love. They do a lot of less slightly smaller budget science fiction genre pictures. I'm sure they have other stuff, but Vinegar Syndrome has been putting out some of their genre pictures, and I just watched The Terranauts, which is a really fun, campy, silly little sci-fi picture. It's one of these ones where the whole thing is shot um, on a in a studio. They've kind of made it look like a spaceship, or they go outside for a few minutes into like somebody's garden basically and try to make it seem like they're on another planet. But they're fun actually. I like this kind of I don't know, this kind of science fiction has always been like soothing for me. It's not it's This is from 1967. Um and the premise is just like this guy's trying to make contact with the alien world, and then they do, and then they get taken up by a spaceship, and then they spend like 20 minutes just putting them through a series of challenges, and they like break down these challenges very meticulously and explain what the aliens are doing, and there's like way too much exposition, but it's kind of charming. I don't know. I like this kind of it's the kind of thing that would maybe borderline be on Mystery Science Theater 3000 with MST 3K or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not quite there. I think it's actually kind of fun and charming, and I hope they put out more Amicus stuff because they have a lot of this.
If you like low budget kind of schlocky sci-fi, there's a really good one that was made by Edgar G. Ulmer, who did
Okay.
Detour.
Yeah.
It's called The Man from Planet X.
Oh, cool.
It's really atmospheric, but like at the same time, it's also like really silly because the alien looks awful. Even like if you pull up the letterbox, you'll see on the cover art for the film on Letterboxd how kind of cheap the alien looks. Um, but it's a really good film. It's actually really good. Like the set design and stuff is really interesting. It's so low budget and stuff, but it just because obviously it's Edgar G. Ulmer, he's just a really good. He just did a great job of building atmosphere despite
Yeah.
having like no money.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'd recommend that one if you're into that kind of sci-fi.
Yeah, I call it like folding clothes sci-fi. Like if you're doing chores around the house, you have it on. Like if you miss 5 minutes at a time because you're distracted, you don't really miss that much. But I find these movies very charming, so I'll definitely check that out. Um, different kind of science fiction. There's a the director from Amelie, early on in his career, made a movie. So the guy's name is Jean-Pierre Jeunet, and he made a movie with a guy named Marc Caro called Delicatessen, which is the closest I've seen to a movie that could be like a brother to Brazil from Terry Gilliam. It's this slightly futuristic, undefined future kind of movie. Um, I don't think it's a spoiler. Is it a well, I can't. There's okay. I won't spoil it, but there's something. This guy goes and gets a job at a deli, and the people that come in and buy the meat, they trade for, they don't have money because nobody has money, so they have like different forms of payment for this guy. There's something funny going on with the guy, and the movie kind of centers around this one. What's the guy's name? Oh shoot, he's Pignon. I don't know if y'all know this guy named Pignon. He looks a little bit like the French Steve Buscemi. He's in a lot of French character actor roles. Um, but anyways, he goes in, and the whole movie is based around him in this deli, and it becomes almost apocalyptic for a while. Dominique Pignon, sorry, that's the guy's name. Anyways, he's just awesome in it, and the movie's awesome, and it's a really dark comedy, very, very like pitch black comedy, and so well made and so creative. And I think I don't know how y'all feel about Amelie. I like it, but I know it hasn't aged well in terms of it's mostly just kind of cutesy rubbish now. I get it, but I think Delicatessen is kind of a masterpiece, and I was reminded of how good it is. Severin put out the movie. And then the final thing I'll talk about is I've been going through Shinya Tsukamoto's filmography. I've seen 4 or 5 of his, and talk about imaginative. Here's another guy that's just, I don't know. That there was a quote from one of his actors that I loved. They said in um, he's an angel in planning and a devil in perfection, something like that. Like they are upset. All the people that ever work with Shinya Tsukamoto are obsessed with how creative he is, and like they said, he's basically like, you know, he does everything. Like he shoots and he edits and he directs and he writes and he acts, and he's truly an auteur in that way. Um, and a lot of his movies get love at like the Venice Film Festival or Cannes, and so most of the discs I saw, or at least more than one of the discs I saw, had interviews in Venice at these film festivals, people talking about how amazing he is to work with and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know, it's been fun to go through his filmography, and the reason I'm doing it is because I feel very lucky these last 2 weeks. Um, I'm getting to record with some of my heroes. So tonight, it's the morning time for me when we're recording this, and tonight I'm going to record with Tom Mess for the other podcast that I'm on, the Mondo Macabro one. Because Tom Mess is like the guy for Shinya Tsukamoto. He wrote a book and he's on most of the commentaries and really studied him. And so I'm excited for that episode to come out. And then a few days back, I got to interview another hero of mine, Frank Zhang. And y'all check this out. He did 67 commentaries in 2024.
So what is that, like more than one a week?
Yeah.
Man's throat is sore. Get that man some honey.
He does it in one take, so he doesn't edit. He says he doesn't like to edit. So if he messes up, he starts from the beginning.
Oh my God.
No, actually, like, just fuck that. Like, no.
Could you imagine if we did the podcast that way? It's just
fuck
like
that. We have had situations where we fucked up by not hitting record, and we just have said, "Oh well, fuck this episode. We're not doing it."
Yeah. There's one. It's a fun interview. One of the ones he talks about, he had to record 9 times. That's the worst one, but still. Yeah, it's been fun to sit down with some of my heroes recently. So I can't wait for the Frank Zhang interview's coming out here on They Live by Film. It'll probably be the week after Valentine's Day, I guess. I have it in the bank now, so we just need to find a good time to publish it. But let's get into
Fast cars.
That's Cars and Freedom.
Yeah, baby. I feel like this is the most Republican episode we're gonna watch, but like not like in a bad way.
The old school Republicans, where it was okay to be Republican.
Yeah.
If y'all are okay, I was thinking about doing this in release order because I don't really know the best way to release these or talk about these otherwise.
Yeah, these are so inoffensive. There's like, for me anyway, there's like no bad film here, so I don't mind what order we do.
All right, cool. So I had to wash my brain and eyes of the 12 Fast and the Furious related movies we saw last year. So I set the stage for good racing movies. And I hope y'all, we'll see when we get into it. But, these are three that are by legends, and they all have their own very auteur stamp on them, and they're fun movies. And I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff to talk about. So going back to 1969, Crown International Pictures, which is a Corman House, Roger Corman House. One of his favorite good friends and favorite directors is a guy named Jack Hill, who's an absolute legend. And if you don't know much about Jack Hill, I would encourage a deep dive. He's just all over some of the best genre films. And this was one where he had made a movie a few years before this called Spider Baby. Zach, I know you've seen Spider Baby. Adam, have you seen
Early
it?
Sid Haig? Yeah.
No, I've never seen Spider Baby. I never really heard of Jack Hill until we watched this. But Spider Baby looks interesting, so it's on my watch list.
Oh, it's so good.
He did another movie with Stephanie Rothman. I wish I could remember the name off the top of my head. You should watch that one too. It's good.
Well, that's a really interesting one. It's called Bloodbath.
Yeah.
But that's the most Roger Corman story ever. I could do a whole episode just on Bloodbath because Arrow released all three versions of that movie, and the commentary talks about it in detail of like how funny that was behind the scenes. But basically, Corman got a little bit of footage from, oh shoot, Romania, I think, of this movie that was made over there about like a artist, and he made it into three separate horror movies. But like Rothman directed one and Jack Hill directed one, but yeah, anyways. But Bloodbath came out, and then the year after that was Spider Baby, and then there's House of Evil and Fear Chamber. I actually have not seen yet.
I haven't seen this either.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, then Pit Stop, and then he would go on probably most famously. I don't know, it's hard to say with him. You could call his Women in Prison movies his most popular in terms of money that they made. The Big Dollhouse and The Big Birdcage are both very profitable. But I think he's most well known for Foxy Brown, if I had to like pick one.
That sounds right. I'm actually going on his to see like what letterbox considers his most popular.
Oh, that's a
Coffee.
good
Foxy Brown.
Yeah.
Or Coffee, sure. But yeah, but he was a huge civil rights advocate in the background and just a cool guy. And there's some interviews. If you get lucky enough to get a chance to listen to one of his interviews, he just seems like somebody you'd want to be friends with, and he knows exactly the kind of movie he was making, and he just has fun with it.
Holy shit, he's still alive? I mean, yeah. good for him, but I just did not know that.
Yeah. I think he's like in his 90s now, I think.
He's born in 33, so he's hitting close to 100.
That's awesome. Pit Stop, unfortunately, is not ranked on either They Shoot Zombies, which, I mean, kind of makes sense, or They Shoot Pictures, which is unfortunate, and I hope it gets reevaluated.
It needs a big release is what it needs. Like, I never heard of this until you brought it up, so I was...
Well, it was on the Arrow player, so I assume Arrow released it.
They did have an early release.
They did?
It was early on in there. It doesn't have like a slipcase limited super release kind of thing, which it would be fun if they could get that. Somebody should actually just do like a Jack Hill box set. As much as I love him,
it's all under Corman. You think? I mean, at least a lot of it's under Corman, so you think it'd be kind of possible.
I think they all.
Arrow have a good few, so I'm surprised Arrow wouldn't, because they have Coffee, they have Switchblade Sisters, so it looks like Arrow has a good number of his films.
Yeah, they do.
At least in Region B, anyway.
That's right. No, yeah, even here, the American stuff, the Aero US has it as well. But yeah, so Pit Stop basically tells the story of it's like an up and coming racer, and or well, he's kind of a troubled. I hope it's not meant to be teen. I'm assuming it's like a young adult or middle-aged adult, um, who gets discovered by this kind of ruthless financier of racing, and it's about his journey up through the ranks of amateur racing. He meets just some terrible people, and he's not necessarily a good person either. Everybody in this movie sucks, and it's extremely. I was thinking about this in terms of the characters in this. I feel like could be written by the Coen brothers. They're all so cynical and nihilistic, but I love this movie. I think it's a lot of fun, and I'd love to hear what y'all think about it before I go in depth.
Well, Zach, do you want to go in? Because you mentioned prior to recording that you have an anecdote about the type of racing that's in this film.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to hear your take.
Yeah, so I guess for a little background, I can't remember how much I've talked about on the podcast, but my family was very much into racing. My grandpa and his brother, my great uncle, were both into modified stock racing. My dad was part of that when he was young, but moved on to do his own type of racing later. But modified stock is what they're doing here. Essentially, what they're doing is they're gutting the car, they're putting a roll cage in it to make it lighter, make it faster, make it way more dangerous. Um, but that was a big race. So my uncle did not do figure eight as far as I'm aware. He did make some noise. NASCAR used to sponsor different types of races. So one of them was my great uncle. He did a lot of great stuff with racing. He got pretty big in racing for a long time. Probably his two biggest accomplishments, and it's fascinating to see these type of movies because there was a part in it later in the movie where they're like breaking off like his cast, or at least like
Yeah,
shaving some of it off.
yeah.
That stuff that really happened because my great uncle, he for a long time held at Bowman Gray Stadium, which is here in North Carolina. He is the only person for like a long time who ever won two major head races in the same night, and he did it with a broken arm. And he had actually broke it the day before because he was trying to jump a well house with a motorcycle. That's just the type of guy he was. Like he decided to become a lumberjack in his 80s. Uh, just a crazy guy. And they almost didn't let him race, but he said, I can shift the gears with my other hand. He like broke his right hand, but he's like, I can shift gears with my left.
Oh my
And
God.
they let him do it. And he won both races that night. And another one was he probably had one of the biggest like blowouts in modified stock racing at that time in the 80s, where it was the Lowe's 150, which was sponsored by NASCAR, where he led like 96 out of 150 laps, and those were all like the end of the race. So I think it was carried on to the finish line. He was so ahead of everybody. Yeah, so I've had a lot of experience with it. My family was very much into it. So it's nice to see like things like Pit Stop. It does have like this, at least the stories I've been told, like this like feel of authenticity to it. There is a lot of skeevy people around. My dad did go-kart racing, which is very similar to stock car, you're just using a smaller motor. But my dad did that for a long time, and he would talk about the things that these people would do to each other. Like my dad got knocked off a track, like at one of them, and I think it was a Virginia Championship, and he went back and like his brakes were actually shot, and he went through and finished the race, actually finished first, and knocked the guy who knocked him off the track on purpose. And back then, you could accuse somebody of cheating, and they would have to tear down the motor and check it to see if you were actually cheating. They had to put $150 up, and if you're found not cheating, then the person would get to keep the $150.
Oh,
But my
gee.
dad didn't have brakes, which would have been illegal. So they were putting it on the truck before it get tested, and somebody put it up. And my grandpa told him, like, just put another go-kart out there. Just put the other one out there. He's like, but it's completely different. It looks completely different. He's like, they won't tell the difference. And he was right. They took it out there. They checked the brakes. No one noticed it was a different vehicle, completely different go-kart. So yeah, it's kind of fun to watch something like Pit Stop and kind of see like how sketchy things get.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Did whatever happened, like were they ever interested in like rising up into bigger races like this guy here, like Rick Bowman here in the movie?
My dad probably had an opportunity at one time. He actually went to race down in Miami, and this was like 100 and some cars that go down there to qualify.
Okay.
And they told him like, hey, don't get discouraged. A lot of people don't even qualify. My dad ended up winning that race. He had a tape of it for years that used to get passed around, but he won Miami. Um, and he probably could have. I don't think it like for my great uncle and my grandpa and my dad. They're just the type of guys that just they like my great uncle founded a HVAC company. So I mean that was more interesting to him. These were hobbies for them,
Okay.
and that's all they ever looked at it as. This was just a hobby.
Okay. Interesting. That's cool, man. What
Yeah,
a cool.
yeah. He tried to get me into it when I was 5, and I wrecked, and then I said I never wanted to do it again. So I never got any further.
What so like how was it watching this movie then for you with that background? Like did
Yeah, I mean it's fun to see because you watch a lot of different race movies, and I like a lot of them. I like Ford versus Ferrari and stuff like that. Obviously, that's a different type of racing,
hmm
but it always feels very polished. And the thing I like about something like Pit Stop is there is this like unpolished feel of it. And especially when you're trying to make something exciting to probably a lot of people that won't necessarily find. I think figure eight on its own is exciting because there's a lot of collisions in figure eight.
Sure.
Where in NASCAR, obviously they're trying to avoid collisions more nowadays,
Right.
which can be a little bit boring for people. Like racing's weird because you don't want anybody to get killed, but you feel like there needs to be wrecks.
That's like a hockey game, right? If you go to a
Yeah.
hockey game and you don't see a fight, you're like, well, this is a waste.
Yeah, like you feel like you're almost there for the potential of violence, and when that doesn't happen, the last time somebody died in NASCAR was when Dale Earnhardt died in the early 2000s. I mean, it's been that long, and it was a much more common occurrence before then. But when you lose your biggest racer in history to, kind of a dumb accident, you get
Right.
a lot more safety concerned, I guess.
Right. Right. Like LeBron James drops on the court because of like a silly foul or something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you better believe the NBA would be changing everything.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, so like with Pit Stop and with one of the other films we're going to talk about later, I find it hard to not necessarily engage, but like connect to it because I'm just so far removed culturally from this stuff because it's just not really like stock car racing and drag racing and figure eight and demolition derby. It's just not a thing in Ireland. We just don't have it here. The closest thing we would have that would be pretty big would be rally car driving. That's
Yeah,
pretty big in Ireland, especially in rural communities, just because we have a lot of roads that suit it. Whereas Ireland being a very hilly and mountainous country, like drag race, there's just not a lot of places you can do like a drag race or something. Um, so therefore, other kind of stock car racing is just not really a thing. So I found it hard to connect to it a little bit because I didn't even really understand what I was watching. I don't get how it's a sport or how it's entertaining. Not that like I think it's bad or anything. I just don't get it. It's alien to me, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I found it hard to connect to it, but I do think it's a pretty good film. You guys know I like kind of low budgety stuff, especially like from this era. So, I thought it was great that they were just like shooting this from the stands, just watching the cars go around rather than a more kind of polished modern action look.
Yeah.
I like that they literally just like, fuck it, let's just do a figure eight and we'll just film it from the stands and it'll be fine.
and
Um,
it's how people experience it. I think that's what helps there. That's how people experience those races.
Yeah.
yeah, so I thought that was cool. I love the score, the kind of like rocky, almost like kind of proto-punk score.
Hmm.
I don't know, score is probably the wrong word. Soundtrack, better word for it. Really like that. I really like the main performance just because the character just seems like he's constantly having a nervous breakdown slash existential crisis. He's like trying really hard to be Marlon Brando, but he's just coming across psychotic. So it's like an almost it's like a so bad it's good kind of lead performance. But then like it has like a solid cast. Sid Haig obviously is in it, and Ellen Burstyn, future Oscar winner Ellen Burstyn, shows up in halfway through the film for a significant role. Um, but yeah, it's one of those films where like I enjoyed it. I had a good time, but I struggled to connect with it, so I probably wouldn't watch it again because of that. One scene I love though was there's like this dune buggy scene like halfway through the film that like has nothing to do with the plot. It's like not important. They could have cut it and it wouldn't have mattered at all. But it just the way it's filmed is really cool. There's like
Hmm.
this one part where it's like following Rick Bowman and he goes up a hill so you can start to see all the dune buggies behind
Yeah,
him also going up the hill. And it just
yeah,
looks great. Like it like I'm not gonna say that like Jack Hill planned the shot purposely for that, but it was just like one of these like just great shots that just came out of nowhere. That just is so well done. It feels almost out of place from the rest of the movie. Not that the rest of the movie doesn't look good, but it's just a different depth of vision
yeah.
in that scene and that kind of sequence. So yeah, the Dune Buggy scene, loved that. Rest of it, I was just along for the ride, not in a bad way per se, but yeah, I just yeah, struggled to connect with it a little bit, and I'll talk about that again when we get to Fast Company. But not a bad film by any means. I had a good time.
Yeah, I think you were talking about the Irish stuff, like rally car is, natural because it's kind of a more rural thing.
Yeah,
I think in a connection that's kind of, the beginning of NASCAR and stuff like that. Like, I mean, it was really started by, when there was a lot of prohibition in the country and there was moonshiners. That's really NASCAR's origin is it's a bunch of rednecks who used to run moonshine, got together and decided they were going to race each other in their modified cars that could beat out a lot of sheriff cars at the time. So I think there is a connection there, but yeah, it is interesting to me that the two countries kind of had a similar. This is a very rural thing, and they kind of came to two very different race styles.
yeah, because even like with modern rally racing, it is like it's lit. There's no tracks for like, or I'm sure it probably is tracks somewhere, but like when a rally happens in Ireland, they just shut down like a big stretch of like country roads that like normal people live on. And people just go stand in their garden and watch these cars zoom by at 120 kilometers an hour down a narrow country road.
Which is so
Like,
cool. That is so
yeah,
cool.
and like it happens, like it still happens all the time. Like it's massive in rural areas, which I live semi-rural. I live in a town, but it's like a country town, if that makes sense. It's like nowhere
Mhm.
near a city. So like a lot of like even like a lot of my friends would be into it, and they would go to like rally races and stuff just at like somewhere in the middle of nowhere, like 30 minutes into the countryside, and half the roads would be shut down for the day while these crazy motherfuckers go speeding around. Yeah. Yeah, I'd never heard of figure eight before. So like even the concept of this,
Most
I
of
was
them
like,
have
what
been
am I
closed
watching?
down.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
find it rather dangerous now.
yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah,
Uh,
it is a dangerous race.
I don't know though. You talked about the cast. I mean, this cast is so good. Like Richard Davalos, you said, who gives a so bad it's good performance, was James Dean's brother in East of Eden, and he's like a real, he's like a Hollywood actor. He has a bunch of really big roles and huge heartthrob guy. And I don't know. I don't think it was bad. I think like the whole point of the movie was to convey that he was this like I think it was a very cynical character the way he was written, right? Like he kind of became him and there's the other guy Grant Willard who was like that finance guy that was running throughout the movie. And he was another, I mean he was I guess probably for me most famous for playing in the Curse or the Fly, the original Fly movies. Um, he was in
I thought
the
we were
he,
about to get a Cronenberg connection. I'm like, they're all connected.
yeah, exactly. Kind of, I guess. He was the lead character in the second Fly movie, which eventually Cronenberg entered the franchise.
Yeah.
But yeah, like these are, and Ellen Burstyn, like you said, and even Sid Haig. I mean, I know he's mostly been in genre films, but I thought he was awesome in this. Like, he had to play an unhinged character, but at times he had to show that other side of like he just been beaten before or he just been beaten and I don't know, it was convincing. I mean, this is fully a B picture, right? I mean, this is, the whole budget for this thing was under $100,000, so by every definition this was a B picture, but I don't know, I liked it. I thought the acting was good. I thought it conveyed what it was trying to do, and this was my third time seeing it, and the main thing I picked up on this time around was the nihilism. Just how the whole world is just so fucked. Like, there's a great scene at the end. I don't know if spoilers really matter for this. Like, it's not really like a spoiler movie, right?
Not really. I mean,
No,
you kind of know where it's heading the whole time. Like it's
it
not headed
it
into a positive place.
it operates largely on vibes as well. There's not really a solid beginning, middle, and end plot.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of follows these characters around. But he doesn't like this guy named Ed McLeod, who's like this douchey kind of like fancy racer. Um, and so he tries to beat him in the race, and as he like knocks his car out, he accidentally kills him, and everybody's crying in the hospital, and the Grant Willard guy, the financier, comes up to him and he's like, "Hey, do you want to be the lead racer?" And he accepts, and they walk off together. And this dude is literally like seconds, just died like minutes ago, and it's a pretty nihilistic ending. So I think the writing was good in this, and I think it was for being just a genre picture. I think it was well made. So this one's a fun one for me.
Yeah, and you talk about the budget. I think the good thing about like a movie like this, and I think that can kind of go for any, there's an unfortunate element to this. So let me just put that where it's made so cheap, the crash, you can tell they didn't have to cut away to like hide crashes and stuff
Yeah,
because there are
yeah.
real people that got in cars and crashed into each other. And you're like, it looks good. Like, but you're like, real people got into a car and hit each other, probably going at pretty decent speeds. But hey, it made a better movie. And thankfully, I don't think anybody got hurt, I hope, or too hurt.
Yeah, you hope.
60s hurt, which is like you probably got a concussion, but you didn't go to the doctor for it.
Exactly. Um, yeah, so I mean, moving along, we have another Roger Corman picture and another one to me, this is not only the favorite of these three, but I'm probably going to put this movie in my top 100 seeing it again. I think if you think of things you want out of a B picture, to me, this just nails it on every front. It's 1975. The director is Paul Bartel, which we'll get into him in a second. Really interesting guy, and it's called Death Race 2000. Um, it is, let's see, it is on. Oh, whoops! I just shut it down. It is on. They Shoot Zombies. It is 4073, so
Yeah,
it's
it's that
kind of
weird
on the
one where
list.
it's not straight
Um,
horror, so some people wouldn't even put it on their list, sort of thing.
right. No, totally. And on They Shoot Pictures, it's just about to cross the top 10,000,
Yeah,
which
real
feels like a
low.
big snub. I think it should be higher. But before I get too much into my love for this film, one of y'all want to go? How was Death Race 2000
This
for y'all?
is actually like my second time seeing it. I actually saw it when I was a kid, and my dad always talked about this because when we drive
Huh.
down the road, he would always like point at people and be like, "That's 30 points. That's 50 points." And I never got it for a long time. And he told me it was from a movie he really liked. And it came on like DirecTV at one time when we had it and we watched it. And yeah, it still holds up really well. I've actually seen the remake more. But yeah, no, it's not one of those things where I think the remake's bad at all. I think it's actually really good. It's very different. It's a different type of movie. But yeah, it was actually like
Mhm.
a lot of fun going back and revisiting this. I love Carradine as an actor. So it's always fun to see him in something because I don't know. I feel like Kill Bill has kind of defined his career in like more recent times, which is fair. I mean, he's good as
Right, right,
Bill.
right.
But yeah, I always, he's just such a charming guy. I always enjoy watching him in anything really.
Totally. Adam.
So yeah, like Death Race, I was so in terms of expectations, I knew what Death Race was, knew it was an exploitation film, knew it was a cult film. So I expected, just a fun little exploitation film. Didn't expect anything too crazy. And this film blew me away with how good it was. It's a stupid good
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't expect it to be like so politically charged as well, which is what I really liked about it.
Hmm.
Like there's so much great social commentary in this film,
Hmm.
which again just it just caught me off guard. But yeah, it's so well made. It's the entire cast are great. The driving sequences, even though they're very obviously sped up, are cool and fun. The cars are cool. The central plot is great. It's a really fun, unique idea. Um, I really have nothing bad to say about this film. It's like I put it in at a 4.5 out of 5 on my letterboxd, which, for me, like a film basically has to be perfect to be above that. Um, so this was a really, really great watch, and I'm really glad I finally got to see it because I don't think I would have ever watched it if we didn't cover it for the podcast, just because,
Hmm. Hmm.
I just never really considered it as essential viewing or anything.
Yeah.
Just because again, I just expected it to be this, little exploitation film that, some circles like and whatever. I didn't expect it to be like anything special, but it is really special. It's actually a really great film that if you haven't seen it, you should definitely make time to watch it because there's just so many great things about it. It's just a great time. It's about how long is
80
it? About
minutes.
90 minutes, 80 minutes.
Hmm.
And it's entertaining for the entire 80 minutes.
Yeah.
There's no downtime. Like even when the drivers are having downtime, so when they have their little breaks and stuff, there's cool character moments happening there, like with David Carradine and his assistant driver are kind of having this romance, but then that she's kind of undercover, and there's a lot of nuances happening. There's just always something happening. There's never really any lulls, which is great. And here's a fun fact that I told you guys already before our listeners. This is the first time I've seen a Sylvester Stallone film in which he receives one of the
Which is
top
so
billings.
wild to me.
I've
Oh,
only ever seen, I know, I've only ever seen Sylvester Stallone make cameos. So he does cameos in Guardians of the Galaxy and Suicide Squad, and he does a cameo in Spy Kids 3. And that's all I've seen in terms of Sylvester Stallone. I've never
wait.
seen him in a lead role, never seen any
Oh,
Rambos, never seen any Rockies, never seen any Expendables, never seen him in a lead role.
I mean, I wouldn't put the Expendables in that same list,
Well,
but
it
holy
makes me want to
cow.
pick First Blood and
Like,
Rocky for my
that's,
next one.
yeah, I was gonna say that's definitely coming in the future then, because people lump Stallone in with the Schwarzeneggers and the Dolph Lundgrens and the JCVDs and all that, but he's actually like his career is a little bit of a different trajectory altogether. Like he was really an actor
And a
first,
writer too. Like, the
um,
thing with Stallone is he can do that
and a
type of thing.
writer.
Like we see him in this. But I mean, at the end of the day, if he needs to pull an emotional performance, he can do it so well. And I mean, if he needs to,
Yeah,
and as a
yeah.
writer, he's very talented. I mean, he wrote I don't know how many Rocky movies he wrote. He may have wrote all of them, but I mean, the first one is such a great screenplay, like all the way through. Like my girlfriend doesn't know a thing about boxing, and I tell people it's Rocky's not a boxing movie. It's really not. And my girlfriend is like, she loves Rocky, and knows nothing about boxing.
I think Rocky's a boxing movie in the same way that
Yeah,
Warrior is an
yeah.
MMA movie.
It's more of a backdrop to something else. Like Rocky to me is like a romance movie.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm so happy y'all had the same reaction to this movie I did, though. Uh, Wait,
Yeah,
did
I
we skip
started at
you,
the
Zach? Have
beginning.
you
That was the
gone
first
yet?
one.
Sorry, my brain fart. But I'm so happy y'all liked it though, because like to me this movie is the perfect genre movie. Like like this is the bar I have every time I seek out a new like movie from Australia. Australia does a good job of making these type of high octane is so cheesy, but like constant, action, like never kind of relentless like action on screen.
Well, I was
They
about to
do a good
say,
job with
like
these.
Miller had to have been
And
influenced by this, like not just because it's like car combat, but like the weird characters and everything else. It feels very first Mad Max.
I totally agree. And even it feels like the book and maybe the movie, but for sure the book of Hunger Games, right? I think there's a lot of similarities to that world too, as far as it being political and the way that these contestants are like kind of rising up against the president and everything. Like I think there's this story feels a lot like what the Hunger Games was. Whether or not you like the movies, it's a cool story. I think the Hunger Games is a good story, and to me, this is like the best telling of that in a movie.
And it's scary also because now I'm wondering roughly how many years until Death Race is real.
Well, there's a sequel, Death Race 2050,
No,
so maybe that's the one.
yeah, No, I mean there's not we don't not to get like too political or anything, but like I think anytime there's fear of a dictator or fear of a fascist government in any country, movies like this come back up and they have like an interesting role to play again, right? And I think it's very interesting watching this movie now. Again, whatever side you're on politically, I know some of y'all might be rolling your eyes that I even saying that, but I'm just saying that fear exists in the country on some level now. And I think movies like this play an interesting role because it seems like you understand where the author is kind of coming from, right? Like you understand where this fear is coming from. And it makes it relevant again and very fresh again.
Well, it's a weird comparison, but it's like when we talked about Doctor Strangelove. Like, it's weird to say that the hope for these movies is you don't want them to age well. And the fact that something 50 years later
Yeah.
still feels
Right.
relevant is always kind of the, oh, okay.
Right. That's a great point. The author of this was a guy named Ib Milkire. I don't know if y'all know that name. He worked a lot with he was a writer and he did some work with Corman. But his stuff was I'm trying to think of the most famous Reptilicus, which just came out from Vinegar Syndrome. He was one of the writers there. He wrote Robinson Crusoe to Mars, Planet
Okay.
of the Vampires from Bava. He wrote the script for that. So he was around horror and genre films his life, and this was a short story that he wrote, and then they picked up and turned it into this. Um, I, I think you mentioned David Carradine. We've talked about Stallone. I think the character actors were really good, and I was kind of stunned. Simone Griffith, she's like of all the 70s female leads, I think she's maybe one of the most beautiful. She just has like this amazing presence about her. And not only like in the like horny sense to say that, but like she's just like stunning, I think. She has such an amazing presence on screen. I'm really surprised that she didn't get more lead roles and wasn't a bigger actor because she's just, I don't know. I thought she was incredible in this.
Yeah, I mean, her, like, there's not like necessarily, like, I know there is to an extent, but it's not purely like a romantic chemistry, which I think is a lot like that role it tends to be thrown to. Like, there is like still there's a lot of dynamics between Carradine and her character where like there's a distrustful nature, there is a platonic nature to it, there's a romantic, like they have to have like a lot of different types of chemistry to like make this work as well as it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is good chemistry between the two leads, and even just like with the different pairings, because obviously each car has a pair of a driver and a navigator, and I think they all kind of have good chemistry. I think they were all kind of paired well. Each of the actors they were all paired up well with their kind of partner. They all
Yeah.
worked well together. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you, Chris. Like, I think for me now, this is a benchmark with exploitation films. If you ever tell me about some fucking cheap 70s film that we gotta watch, this is now my benchmark. If it's not as good as Death Race, then fuck it, I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, few are. I think it's just in case people are like trying to figure out what I don't think it's good in the sense of like it's never going to be compared to Bergman or something like that, right? But I think what I love about it is every single shot, every single scene is not wasted. Like there's you're going to this to see a death race. That's why you're going to see it, which is ironic given what the movie's about. But you want to see some interesting racing, and that's all there. But I don't think and you kind of touched on this, Adam. I think what you don't expect is that every character is developed to some degree, some more than others, but every character is developed to some degree. There's a overarching theme and reason and plot behind all of this that like you instantly understand and like they drop you into this world. The cinematographer is Tak Fujimoto, who is a award-winning cinematographer. This is early on in his career. He's another one of these people that came from the Corman School. So the cinematography is good. I wouldn't, it's not Lawrence of Arabia, but I mean, considering this was a very tight budget, I think the cinematography is
It
nice.
makes an otherworldly feel. Yeah,
And
I
the
agree. Like
scenes,
it feels otherworldly, even though it's still just being filmed here. Like it feels like the future, like 70s futurism somehow. And I can't explain how he does it, but it's definitely strong.
yeah, 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 exactly. So they had all these great pieces kind of coming together, and I think it's just one of those things that clicks. Um, and so I don't know. To me, this is a near perfect film.
Very, very great movie.
Anything else on this before we get into
You know,
another
it's
auteur?
I don't think
no,
so.
I was just say it's kind of weird
Sorry,
because I feel like this one, yeah, I have the most to say for, but at the same time, I would almost like if somebody who's listening hasn't seen it, I'd almost like just go watch it. Like this is one I would prefer not to like spoil the end of or anything like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar. Like if you're like me and you thought, meh, I don't really need to watch this movie. It's just cheap exploitation trash or whatever. It's not. Like you should watch it. You should give it a chance because yeah, I think I had such a fucking great time watching this movie. Very, very enjoyable. Probably like my biggest surprise film in a long time, in terms of like I enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. Just as a very quick, so I did want to talk about Par Bartel just a second because he didn't direct a lot of movies. He was an actor first. Most of his credits are in acting, and he did a lot of genre pictures. But he did Eating Raoul, which is just kind of his most famous movie. Um, but he did this, and then there's one other movie that he was quite famous for. But the thing I like about him is he's a highly intelligent writer. Cannonball was the other one he did, which, if y'all want another fun exploitation movie, Cannonball came out the year later, and it also has David Carradine in it, and it's a fun. I think Death Race 2000 is probably better, but Cannonball is also really fun, and it's also based on the um, cross-continent road race that took place in the
Oh, it
U.S.
has two Carradines in it.
So
Look at that. They just needed Keith in there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the
Yeah,
is it
Robert and
Robert
David
who's in it?
Carradine.
Okay.
Today I
Yeah.
learned there's a
Yeah,
Robert
Keith
Carradine.
Keith
Okay.
got famous, I guess,
Oh,
more
there's so
towards
many of them.
Dexter and stuff. I feel like that's his most like recent big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, I mean I think the Paul Bartel is a fun name. If you haven't seen Eating Raoul, it's a completely different movie, but it's another complete classic. For it's a very dark comedy. Okay, so we've covered a bunch of auteurs, and I think it's maybe fitting that we end on somebody who would never be expected to make a film about drag racing, and to make a gritty film without any irony in it, just a straightforward film about drag racing. And that's David Cronenberg, 1979, one of his lesser viewed movies called Fast
I
Company.
did want to bring up how little this has been viewed, at least through like Letterboxd. There is a 4 minute short that goes with Crimes of the Future that I've never heard of that is more popular than this movie.
Yeah, it's just no one knows about it, right? I mean, even on They Shoot Pictures, this is ranked 21,000, which at that point, I mean, it's basically on like one
Yeah, one
person's
like
list or
big
something, right?
Cronenberg stan is like, you must see Fast Company.
I want to. There's a specific thing I want to talk to y'all about. Cronenberg calls this a Western that he made, and I think that's a really interesting comment. But it's a movie that he made. He's very public about. He got hired to direct this, and he made it to support his family. But he still tried to put his spin on it the best he could. But I'd love to hear what y'all think
I'll
before we get into
start.
it.
I have to say this might be the strangest Cronenberg movie I've ever seen, and just not in the way that's expected.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because it's pretty normal. Like I kind of like when I left it.
Hmm.
I can't say I wasn't entertained. I was fairly entertained throughout it all. but I don't have any real like
Hmm.
feelings towards it. Like it's really weird. Like I don't want to say I'm apathetic towards it because I especially like I think the last like 10 minutes of the movie is a ton of fun. I think it's like give Cronenberg the keys to Fast and Furious, let him make it if it's like the last 10 minutes of this movie. That's cool. But like
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Like I just it's a strange movie that just feels almost like it's in limbo for me the whole time. Like I'm not having a bad time. It's just more, I guess, a vibe. Like there's a vibe to it that you just kind of stick with. Like it's almost like a hangout movie, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
enjoyed
Yep.
it to a degree. I definitely don't think it's worth like I saw a bunch of like half and one star from people I follow, and I was like, I definitely don't think it's like that. Like I think I appreciate like the passion that's in it because I could tell watching it, I was like, well, Cronenberg obviously likes racing of some sort. And then yeah, when I started looking it up, I'm like, oh yeah, the
Right.
dude really likes racing. And I do think that comes through. But
Uh-huh.
that's probably the thing that seems to have the most passion behind it in the movie.
Hmm.
So for me, if I skipped the opening credits of this film, I could have sat there for a week naming directors before I would have hit Cronenberg.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
yeah. And like I haven't seen a ton of Cronenberg. I've seen Scanners, I've seen Videodrome, and I've seen
Probably The Fly, right?
uh no, I haven't seen The Fly. What's another one of
Dead
his
Ringer, Dead
big earlier
Zone,
ones? No,
Eastern
no,
Promises, History of Violence, Crash.
no, no.
Yeah, because I'm like
I'm
running
gonna
out
look it
here.
up because it'll be quicker.
Video. What are the ones you named, Adam?
I've seen Scanners and I've seen Videodrome. Actually, I think those are the
Yeah,
only two.
I was
Never
like, dude,
mind.
what obscure
Uh,
fucking Cronenberg movie did you see?
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. No, there was. Yeah, I thought I'd
Exactly.
seen other ones. I've seen Videodrome. I've seen Scanners. This is the third Cronenberg. So I'm not a huge Cronenberg expert, but I feel like if I've seen Scanners and Videodrome, I got a pretty good handle on his style.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously this is more like a Tony Scott
Yeah,
film than it is, this is like fucking Days of Thunder, kind of, just kind of like blue collar middle America racing movie. It's not
yeah,
anything I
definitely
would have
more 80s
expected
and
from
90s
Cronenberg,
Scott. I
which I
like that
think,
comparison. Like, yeah, definitely more of that.
yeah, for sure. Very, yeah, it was in that fight. No, that's not to say there's no Cronenbergisms in it. We still get some nudity. There's a little bit of violence. There's still stuff there that Cronenberg obviously has a lot of experience with filming.
Hmm.
So there's some stuff there. Um, but yeah, I'm surprised with all the low ratings as well, Zach, because this is like the most
Yeah,
inoffensive film ever. It's just 90 minutes of dudes hanging out and building cars and racing. The soundtrack is like schmaltzy, kind of like stadium
it's
rock.
like Convoy.
Uh, it's like, yeah, it's like, but like it's not bad. It's like it's fine. It's the most inoffensive middle of the road kind of mid movie
Yeah.
ever. There's like nothing bad about it, but there's nothing great about it. There's some cool moments here and there. Like I agree, the ending is batshit. Um, I love John Saxon, so I like John Saxon in anything he shows up
Yep.
in. His
Yep.
character is
Definitely.
is cool in this as well because he's just a fucking asshole. Um, I couldn't figure out for ages who the actual main character was because like there's the older driver and then there's the young driver. And I couldn't find out who like the main guy was supposed to be. And then it turned out it was the Lonnie Johnson guy who was fucking jacked. That I was so like there's like he doesn't really show it for like most of the film. He's wearing jackets and stuff, and then like towards the end he comes out wearing a tank top, and that dude is fucking. He's like 50 and he's fucking
If
ripped
it
to shreds.
helps,
He's
he
like
played
Wolverine.
Conan's father in
Yeah.
Conan the Barbarian. So the dude's always been jacked.
That tracks. Yeah, I could not believe. I was like, holy shit, this dude is fucking huge. Uh,
100%. Yeah.
but
He's awesome.
yeah, this film was fine. Like this is kind of similar to Pit Stop. Well, I think Pit Stop's a better film, but I think that it's similar to Pit Stop in that I struggled to connect with it because like I don't know what the fuck a funny car race is. I don't know what any of this is. We don't have enough straight roads to do drag racing. Um, and I'd always heard, and this is something you guys could confirm for me because I'm just making a guess here because it's mentioned in this, and it's a term I've heard with like Big Sky. Is it called Big Sky
Yeah,
just
that's
because
like
it's so
middle
flat?
America.
So like it's just
Yeah.
okay. So like just because anywhere there's no mountains and stuff, so all you
That's
see
how
is
I would
sky if
take
you look
that.
around.
Yeah, I
Is that
mean,
what it would?
yeah, like if I naturally heard
Okay.
that, that'd be like I don't know. Like drag racing isn't like as big here. Like same thing. There's not a lot of straight roads.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, like again, I don't really get the hate that some letterbox users show for this. I think maybe this is more a case where if it wasn't made by David Cronenberg, the ratings would be slightly higher. I
Yeah.
think people are just rating it poorly because it's Cronenberg and it's not a
And it was
typical
the last one
Cronenberg.
they had to finish to be
Um,
complete, and they're just mad about it.
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
They're just like, what the fuck is this fucking drag racing movie? Where's the blood? Where is the people falling apart and
Which, Adam,
turning
you
into
haven't
weird
seen
shapes?
Crash, which I actually
Where
think you would
is
like. You should see Crash. Chris, have you seen
no?
Crash?
Yeah,
The Cronenberg one,
I'm
yeah.
assuming you mean the Cronenberg one.
It's the one where
Yeah.
James Woods likes fucking wounds. Is that the one? He's like has a thing about
God, it's been
wounds
so
or
long since I've
something
seen
or
it. I was mostly
crashes.
just like, because it's a whole thing about
No,
like people get turned on being in crashes. That's like the whole thing. Yeah. So I did think
Okay,
that part where he's like throwing
yeah.
motor oil on the girl while she's naked. I was like, man, he was thinking about Crash for a long time.
Yeah, see, there is some Cronenbergisms in there, isn't there? Like there's a few
Yeah,
weird
yeah,
stuff in
there's
here,
definitely like a
and obviously like
perpetual
if
weirdness in it. I think that's what kind of kept me going. I was like, okay,
yeah
I'm into it, but I'm like, it's like one of those things where I'm teetering on the part where I stop getting interested, but I never quite cross that line where I'm not interested. Like I stay focused on
yeah
what's going on.
on the comment, there's an old DVD of this from Blue Underground, which means they'll probably put out the 4K eventually. But on the commentary track, Cronenberg says at the end he says that he doesn't think anybody could have made this movie like he did. He was very proud of it. It's funny, Cronenberg's very proud of his own work. The scene with the motor oil with the two women where he was pouring it on him, he said that they cut that out, and he was surprised that they had included it in the cut for the release, and he was thrilled. Like it was a genuine moment where he was like, "Oh, it's in," because he was just talking about how like, "Oh, that there was a scene that I shot where he has more time with the women," and then he's like, "Oh, it's in," and he said, "I think this is one of the great moments in cinema history that this is back in the movie."
I rate that. And you know what? I like that he did the commentary and obviously he still has somewhat of a care for this because
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah,
a lot of filmmakers who would just like basically disown it and wouldn't want anything to do with it and wouldn't do commentaries, won't do special features. So
yeah, yeah.
actually I like that he'll do that because that's nice. I like that.
No, he likes this movie. I mean, he's very open that he did it for a
Yeah, you can do
paycheck,
something
but
for
he
like
likes
I
it,
think that's all,
and I
something
think
that can kind of feel lost now is like you can do something just for a paycheck and try. Like there's a blue collar element to that. Like I
yeah,
don't want to do this necessarily, but if I'm going to do it, I'll do it right.
yeah, 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 exactly. Um, yeah, there's not. I don't think there's a lot to say about this film. I do think if you view it from the perspective of it being a Western, I do think it adds an interesting angle to this. Because there's a character called Billy the Kid, right? There's the main character's Lonnie Johnson, which is like a
Yeah.
great Western name. The way that it kind of ends is like they all get together and they're going to go on another adventure together. So I do think it has a lot of
Yeah, and there is
Western
this like
beats to it.
this almost like comment. I don't know if it quite goes to the level of commenting, but almost like it's trying to like show some like hostility and the masculinity element. Like that one dude flies off the handle like almost every scene he's in. Yeah,
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 almost.
yeah. The
And then of
bigger
course
guy.
it does end with him going pretty off the handles. So it leads to something.
Right, right. Yeah. No, I think John Saxon plays that typical
The
Western
oil
villain. Like
tycoon
I
coming in.
do,
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
kind of
see
see what
that.
exactly. I do kind of see what he's going for. I think, again, there's not really enough meat in here, I think, to say definitively that this is like a masterpiece or anything like that. But I agree with y'all. There's no way it's a 1.5 star movie. Um, if you're expecting Scanners, I mean, I guess sure, maybe you wouldn't be happy with it, but
You know what? I
um,
probably like this film
I'd
more
have
than
to
Scanners
rewatch Scanners. I wasn't the biggest fan either.
because I can. This is the thing. I can tell you the plot of this movie. I can't tell you anything that
Yeah,
happens in fucking Scanners. I have no
yeah,
idea
and
what
like
happens in
usually you
that
can at least
movie.
tell. Like I can tell you everything that happens in Videodrone, and it's just as weird.
Yeah.
right, true, 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 trying to think of Spider's another one that kind of gets weird in some places, but anyways,
This
we could
is
do
our first
another. We'll do a
Cronenberg in
Cronenberg
like
cast
4 years
day.
talking about this. Wow, wild. Our first one
Is
is
it? Yeah.
Fast Company.
Yeah, that is
Somebody in our
of all the
audience has been
things to
waiting
start
for
with.
4 years for us to cover a Cronenberg movie. And they're like, Fast
And we're
Company.
doing Fast
We're doing Fast Company.
No,
They're
we do
pissed.
need to do a Cronenberg cast one day because I don't know. That's a fun idea actually. I like his movies a lot. But,
I
yeah,
suppose I
thanks for
should.
going on this journey with me, everybody. So I don't think I have anything
No,
else
I'm
to
good.
say
Yeah, that
Yeah.
fun episode, Chris. I enjoyed these. They were all short. Thank you.
Yeah, this is like they're all short and none of them are bad. Like they were all just it was a fun time to spend in the afternoon just watching some racing.
Good.
Very inoffensive week. Um, Next time out, we're doing something a little bit interesting because we're going to watch the same film in terms of the same story but told by three different filmmakers in three very different periods of time. So as I said at the start of the episode, I recently rewatched Robert Eggers' Nosferatu as it came out on digital a few weeks ago and it's out on physical soon, if not already. Um, so I thought it'd be an interesting idea for us to watch three different Nosferatu films,
Oh,
just to see how different filmmakers tackle the story, both stylistically and thematically. So naturally, we're going to watch the Murnau original from 1922, if I remember correctly, and we'll watch the Werner Herzog version with Klaus Kinski from 1970 something,
Which means an
1978, I
hour of the
think,
show
something
will be
along
taken
those
up of
lines.
us just talking about Klaus Kinski shenanigans.
sure.
Yes, for sure. We all need to come with five anecdotes as homework. And then of course we'll watch the new one,
Sweet.
the Robert Eggers one. So it's a Nosferatu triple feature. If we had more time, I would have thrown in the film Shadow of the Vampire,
Excellent movie.
which is I don't know if you guys know
So
about it.
good.
I haven't seen it, but it sounds really interesting.
It's extremely good.
Oh, okay, cool. I might just watch it myself then. I don't think we'll get time to talk about it. We might get time to talk about it.
Honestly,
I'll watch it
watch it
myself
after
in
the
the meantime. It
22.
sounds
I
super
think that's the most
interesting.
fun way to watch it. After you watch 22, watch that one.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna make time for that then because it sounds interesting. And if we had time for a traditional fourth film, I would have put it in there as well. But now that I know that you guys have already seen it, then I'm gonna try and watch it as well and maybe get a few minutes to talk about it. But yeah, we'll be back sometime in early March then. So Nosferatu triple threat, triple feature. And yeah, I'm interested to see. I've never seen the Herzog one. I've seen the Murnau a long time ago. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Herzog does it, and I'll probably rewatch the Murnau one as well. Um, I've seen the Eggers one twice, so I'm not going to rewatch that one. But yeah, I'm interested to see how they differ thematically and stuff, and I'm interested to see how Chris is going to get on with his second Eggers movie in the space of 3 months.
We've now done more Eggers than we have done Cronenberg. Look at that.
Yes, there we go.
He only has like 4 movies, right? So awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
See ya.
See you guys in a month.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description.
Hello, this is Aaron West. I am the author of the A24 New Wave. In this book, I look at A24's output and I make the argument that we are in a new wave movement right now. A24 plays a major role. This book has a supplemental podcast where each episode is a brief conversation about an A24 related topic, whether an actor, director, or even a genre. As I continue research for the book and conduct interviews, I expect to record podcast episodes with people involved with the company. You can find the podcast at cinejourneys.com or wherever you find podcasts, and we are proud to be members of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror. We'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.